Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. This is the Orlando Sentinel Editorial Board's endorsement interview with the candidates from State House District 45. And I think everybody watching this video will know where House District 45 is because it is the home of the Walt Disney World Entertainment Complex. And today we are joined by two candidates who are facing off in the November election to represent that district. Carolina Amesty, she's a Republican who serves as Executive Vice President at Central Christian University in Orlando. And Allie Braswell, who is Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for ViStar Credit Union, which is headquartered in Jacksonville, though he does live in the district. We're going to be spending about a half an hour talking through some of the issues in this race. And I usually start with a question about the budget. But there is one question that of this race and all the races we absolutely have to start with. In one of the recent sessions, the Florida legislature passed a special law that will abolish the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which for 50 years has served as the the official government entity that allows the Walt Disney World properties to tax themselves. Do you approve of this move? And if so, where do you make up the cash that was with the comes with it? And if not, what do you think should be done to affect that? And I did want to make one correction. Mr. Braswell is Senior Vice President. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's start with Ms. Amesty.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I understand the importance of Disney in our district. Of course, Reedy Creek is the center of tourism. I've had the opportunity to travel abroad, and I remember every time I talked about coming from Orlando, living in Orlando my whole life, the first thing they would say, oh, Disney World. So it's in a very important, I would say, sector in our district, the tourism industry. So I think it's important in the upcoming session that we understand the importance of Disney and its role in the district. And of course, our governor has made it very clear that it would come up to the next session, and of course that we're going to be able to talk and discuss, and it's not going to be a burden for the taxpayers, but nonetheless there will be an agreement that benefits the Floridians as a whole, and of course Disney. Disney is in its role to create tourism, to create job growth, and that's its role in Central Florida. So we're going to be able to work around that next session, and it's very clear that it's not going to be a burden for our taxpayers, our constituents, and that we're going to be able to continue with that epic center in tourism. Thank you.
And I might just follow up here because I apologize if I missed it. I think specifically one of the things Chris was asking was, do you favor abolishing the Reedy Creek district? And I'm not sure I understood your answer on that front.
Thank you for the clarifications. I believe we're going to be able to address this in an upcoming session. Personally, I don't think we have to abolish Reedy Creek, but of course, we're going to be able to work on that upcoming session. It's very clear that the governor has made it, it's very clear. Disney is in its role to ensure tourism, to create prosperous communities through the sector of job growth and tourism and hospitality and entertainment, not in educating our children. But that's something that we're going to be able to discuss in the upcoming session. But it's very clear we understand the importance of Disney. Personally, I live very near Disney. I understand its importance. I understand the job growth, the opportunity that it brings to our district. But of course, we have to be able to ensure that industries like this don't get involved in our children's education. One thing is tourism, and the other is getting involved in our politics.
All right, Mr. Braswell?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to join you this afternoon. And let me be very clear. No, I do not stand with the governor's desire to take away Reedy Creek Improvement District. As a Disney cast member for years, I know the importance of being able to have that body in place And it has existed for years, and it shouldn't be a retaliatory move because somebody stood up for a group of people. I think when you think about Reedy Creek Improvement District, one of the reasons that it existed was so that the Disney company could tax itself and be able to have the improvements that were necessary to be able to keep the park and the adjoining developments pristine. I think when you look at that, we also have to think about the livelihood and the fact that many members of our community, the largest employer in our state, work at Walt Disney World. So when you take a look at it holistically, it's more than just a reaction to them standing up for a group of people that should lead to this. Reedy Creek Improvement District and all the economic factors that come into play are definitely important to our community. But what's more important is we should allow business to operate as business and not get into the business of telling them how to operate. I think this is something that we have to think about with small businesses as well as large employers. And, in the tax burden, it is not clear that it will not be transferred down to the average taxpayer in the counties of Osceola and Orange. What we have to do is really look at that. I think there was a loophole left by the governor, so it could be revisited, but that's not the way it was conveyed, and that's not the way it has played out. Thank you.
Florida's budget in the past couple of years has been considerably augmented by federal dollars from COVID relief funds. What should the legislature be doing to get ready for the time when that money stops flowing? And how will it make up any shortfalls due to that? And we'll start with you, Mr. Braswell.
Thank you for the question. I think when it comes to our budget, we need to be where the federal subsidies have come in and helped out during COVID. We need to holistically look at our budget and make sure that we're budgeting amply to be able to handle the encumbrances that come about with government. I think in looking at that, we had to look at programmatic and make sure that the programs are being spent, the dollars are being spent to where they need to be. I think we have a budget and we have a tax base that allows us to cover the budget and the needs of the state, but we must also make sure that we cover the needs of the people. I think when we look at things such as billion-dollar bailouts to industry, we need to stop those things and we need to keep dollars in place. For instance, the Sadowski Fund. We need to leave the Sadowski Fund alone and allow it to do what it was meant to do. We shouldn't be raiding other coffers in order to just be able to pay for different things that we want to do in the legislature. I think we have to take a look at our expenditures. We need to make sure that we tighten our belt. We need to make sure, though, that we also take care of people and we put in place things that adequately fund and take care of the state of Florida. So it's going to be an exercise that's going to require us to work across the aisle to get things done. And it's going to require us to come together to make sure that we have an airtight plan for how we spend the dollars that taxpayers pay. And in doing that, I think we also have the fiduciary responsibility to leave the dollars where they are supposed to be, rather than the past legislative sessions that have often raided dollars like the Sadowski Fund. So I think if we do that, we'll be able to meet the gaps and meet the needs and come out with a budget that we can all move forward with and take care of Florida.
Thank you. Amesty.
Yeah, so it's very, I would say, very important to understand that we have about $20 billion in reserves. For such, we're in a great position. I mean, if we compare the state of Florida with other states like the state of California and the state of New York, those are states that really rely on the federal government and its aid during COVID. But the state of Florida is in a very great position. We have been able to do a lot of tax cuts that generate more economic growth in the private sector, which essentially employs people and provides a lot of opportunity for our communities. So it is important to note that we're in a very good position. And of course, we're going to have to keep monitoring the upcoming months to see what is going to be happening when it comes down to the federal government. But we're in a great position, $20 billion in reserves. I mean, the state of Florida is growing and it's an economy, and we're being very fiscally responsible. I would say as a Republican, a conservative at heart, we see that House majority, the Republican Party has done a great job, its leadership and our governor. So we're in a very great position. And I would say that in the upcoming months, we'll continue to keep that momentum and to care for the well-being of our communities. Thank you.
Well, I have one more follow-up and then I'll let my colleagues go. But that reserve fund could change dramatically based on the events of the next 96 hours. Over the past 3 years, the size of Citizens Property Insurance, which is backed by the taxpayers of the state of Florida, has more than doubled. And in addition, there are companies that are on the brink that will likely be drawing heavily and possibly exhausting the state's catastrophic fund. If the big hurricane that's headed our way does the kind of damage that people are starting to say that might. Why hasn't the state been able to fix the property insurance situation? What should the legislature be doing? And Ms. Amesty, can we start with you?
Yeah, thank you. That's a big concern for us, especially in the district. We're very concerned on the property insurance crisis that we have in the state as a whole. We see a lot of people being victims of these false claims of let's change your roof, and they all these, I would say, fraudulent activities happening. We're just increasing our property insurance, and of course the citizens overload of I would say clients and constituents using and utilizing. So it is a high concern. I can't speak for the past, but I will speak for the future. As a conservative and as I would say the representative District 45, I will ensure that we protect our constituents against these fraudulent claims and groups of folks, and then as well that we caring for this element of changing I would say the crisis and the property insurance crisis. I've seen it myself as a constituent homeowner, through where I live, and of course, commercial properties that I own. I've seen that we've had a hike in insurance. It is of a high concern. Something must be done, and I would say is a top priority for the upcoming session.
Mr. Braswell?
Ms. Fluker, that's a great question, because as I go out and I spend time talking and visiting with members of the district, they're very concerned about this current hurricane that's coming down upon us, and will the insurance that they have today be in place tomorrow when they are going to need it? I think when we look at it, I will speak to the past legislature that has been Republican led met twice. They met in the regular session and in the special session, and the only thing that came out of that was a $2 billion bailout to the industry. I think in order to be able to bring this to where it needs to be and make sure that insureds are protected, is we need to sit down and have conversations with the legal community, the insurance community, and with the legislators to come up with a solution that helps to bring about changes that lowers the cost of insurance, that keeps an incentive in place to keep insureds here, insurance companies here, and to make sure that our insureds are protected, because the worst thing we can do is go into a hurricane season like we are right now and not be sure or firm that our insurance company is going to be there at the end of the season. I think when you look at that, I've talked with the insurance companies, I've talked with the actual agents that are providing this. We have to get out of the attitude of that it's sue first. But we also have to have insurance companies that are willing to work and say, approve first. So when we do that and we come up with a solution, that's by sitting down at the table with the insurance companies, with the legal community, and with the vendors that actually do this, and coming up with an airtight solution that can be moved forward, that produces reductions in cost to our consumers, that maintains an incentive for insureds to stay here and provides that protection and incentive to be here, and just kind of put a stop to the predatory practices that have caused this to balloon out of control. That's basically what I think we should do. And I think we also have to hold accountable what has happened in the past.
Thank you very much. I want to ask you guys two questions, one policy issue to both of you, and then one question about each of your campaigns. I'll start with the general policy issue with the Roe versus Wade being overturned. This issue is going back to the states. Both the governor and legislators have said they want even further restriction. With some specificity, can you tell us what restrictions, if any, you believe women should have on their right to choose, and what exceptions or exemptions there should be? And Mr. Braswell, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Scott. The key thing is I am totally supportive of women having reproductive freedom. I think we do need to have restrictions. That I don't believe near-term abortions are where we should be. I think, though, if a woman has been attacked and raped or there is incest, there needs to be a remedy for women to be able to take care of that. I truly believe this sits with their faith, their doctor, and the woman to make that decision. I think when we start to take away rights in America, we're on a slippery slope. We should not be taken away, but we should be protecting rights. And, when people say that they're pro-life isn't only at conception and birth. It is also when we have people, unfortunately, having to face the death penalty. So when I say that I am for protecting our rights, I believe the greatest thing we have in America is our democracy and our ability to choose and our ability to discern and lead our own lives. I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does a little bit. I told you I was going to press for some specificity, so I'm going to follow up with you on that. The devil is in the detail, especially with terms like near term and pro-life. Specifically, at what point do you believe, if any, what weak point do you believe women should not have a right to an abortion?
I don't think that they should not have a right to an abortion. I think that is their decision to make with their faith, with their doctor, and in their own private home.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, Ms. Amesty.
So I'm 100% pro-life. And as a woman, I'll share that I personally believe now the states have more rights than ever. And as a woman, we now have the rights specifically granted from the state, as we can see the overturn of Roe versus Wade. But something very important to state when it comes down to our great state of Florida, District 45, our community, as a woman, we saw that our governor just signed a bill, 15-week abortion ban. 15 weeks is more than enough to determine whether you want to have the child or not. If we talk about rape, incest, or even just changing your desire, for example, 15 weeks is more than enough. After 50 weeks, I don't think it's justified. To me, life starts at day one, of course, but women's right, I think our state is great when it comes down to women's right. You have the right, you have 15 weeks. It was signed an executive order for our great governor. I mean, that's more than enough. It's very clear. It's very transparent. I don't have anything else to comment on that. It's 15 weeks.
Okay, and just so we're clear, you believe women should have the right to choose up until 15 weeks to have an abortion?
I am 100% pro-life, but I agree and I appreciate the executive order that was signed by our governor of 15 weeks. I personally believe that life starts at day one. I am 100% pro-life, but our governor has made it very clear through an executive order, it's 15 weeks.
Okay, but you personally believe no choice? I
personally believe in life, 100% pro-life.
Okay. All right. I wanted to switch over. I've been following each of your campaigns. I try to follow endorsements. I think voters can sometimes take something away from who candidates choose endorsements they wanted to tout. I want to ask you each individually. Ms. Amesty, I saw one of the big ticket endorsements you have with Donald Trump Jr. Came in. Can you tell residents of this district here in Florida what kind of expertise you think Donald Trump Jr. Brings to this district and the legislature and why that's a good thing for them to be aware of?
I knew you guys were going to ask me about that. That's quite interesting. So as you know, I'm a Republican. I think the preamble of our party still is around President Trump. Don Trump Jr. is the son of the former president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump. He's a good friend, came to town. He did an endorsement. He did a fundraiser for my campaign during the Republican primary. Now, when it comes down to policies and specific, I would say on District 45, Donald Trump Jr. does not live in our district. So I don't have anything related to policy to say that we can state specifically to our district. But as you know, I am a conservative. I am a Republican. And that's more of a party line figure, and his father is a former president of the United States. Whether we agree with it, whether we don't agree with him, he's a former president of the United States and was a Republican president.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Braswell, one of the ones that caught my eye in your race that you had touted is the endorsement of the teachers union, the statewide teachers union. I know some folks are fans, some folks are not. Can you tell us what you think residents should take away from that about you and your campaign?
Well, what I think they should take away is there's substance there. These are the people that we charge with educating our children and helping them begin their learning so they can navigate this great country. I think when you look at that and we talk about educators and with our mass exodus going on, to have a group that comes together that says, I understand where they're coming from in terms of pay equity, in terms of being able to teach and help equip children with the ability to learn and learn in the styles that they need in order to be successful. I think that's a powerful statement because education is important in our district. Education and having teachers in schools and people who are qualified to teach is important in our schools. And, in meeting with them and educators and having had my daughter teaching in a charter school here in Ocoee, and also, to be the son of a teacher, I know the importance of having the right professional at the right time to be able to convey the right level of understanding, convey the right ideas. And I think it's very important. So to have their endorsement meant the world to me because that's a body of people that we need to keep in Florida, that we need to figure out ways to incent and retain them in Florida. And that was one of the reasons why I was just really overjoyed to receive their endorsement.
Okay. Thank you both very much for your answers. I think my colleague Jay has a question or two.
Well, I sort of wanted to follow up with both of you on something Mr. Braswell just said about the retention of teachers. What specifically does need to be done? I'm obviously paying teachers more is the bottom line, but what else can be done to stem the teacher shortage? And is the quick fix that we've had where sometimes some teachers that are not certified or come from out of the area have been used? But what's your opinion on that? And what's the end game in terms of what the legislature can do? And Mr. Braswell, since you just spoke, I'm going to start with Mr. Amesty. I'm sorry, with Ms. Amesty on this one.
Yeah, thank you. So as an educator, I understand the importance of education in our community. I serve as an educator currently with Central Christian Academy. And I must tell you that there's a lot to do when it comes down to education. One, of course, we have to expand school choice. But to answer your question specifically regarding retaining teachers, we need to ensure that veteran teachers are paid more. It's not fair for teachers that have been there for 30, 35 years. They're getting paid less significantly from teachers that started recently. So first we have to go in and ensure that our veteran teachers are paid accordingly. And then of course we have to be able to open, I would say, certifications that allow teachers from other states, that allow graduates that have a master's degree in science and master's degrees in arts and specifically areas of studies, that they can get their certification rapidly, because right now we have an extreme shortage of teachers. I live it on the private sector. It's very hard right now to find teachers and to retain teachers, but retain, it's because of course, we have to honor our teachers, the ones that are starting new, and then of course the ones that have been there for many years. So retain teachers and open a bit the expansion on being able to recruit new teachers, people that have worked in the private sector in different areas, that have the degrees, that have the specialty, ensure that it's easier to acquire the certification and provide more benefits and a raise in pay to be able to be more attractive for people to go into the educational sector.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Braswell, back to you, referring to the teacher shortage. Do you have specific ideas on retention beyond pay? And how do you feel about the certification of teachers in this current environment?
Well, Jay, I'd like to go back to something you stated when you opened the question. I don't think there is a quick fix. I think we have to have a lasting resolution. And that is, we need to do everything that Ms. Amesty spoke about, but at the same time, we need to come up with incentives like we have used in the past. You know, when teachers were asked to teach in certain districts or Title I areas, they were given a break on mortgages, or an incentive that if you worked in that district, you had an opportunity to purchase a home over there and do it at a reduced rate. I think you have to look at things, incentive programs like that. We need to get creative. Of course, we need to raise their pay. These are the people who spend the most precious time with our students, with our children, and often they are the least paid. And I think that's an opportunity to fix it. As the legislature, we need to sit down and spend time talking through it. We need to hear from educators, because they know better than anyone who should, what should be done and how to do it in order to keep them here. I agree that we got to incent people to come into our state and bring their skill set and their expertise to teach. But what I don't think is that you open the floodgates and suggest that just because you were in the military, you are capable of teaching. I think that's a specialized trade. I think it's a specialized expertise and a temperament that you must have in order to be a successful teacher. I also think we need to allow teachers to teach. That is one of the things I hear from them most of all, is allow me to teach, allow me to educate, rather than have me stacked with regulation that I'm only teaching to test. I think those things are the things that will encourage others to come and to keep the teachers that we currently have.
Thank you for that. And I do want to switch gears for another question. Several times during this interview, we've touched on the subject of housing, and affordable housing is obviously a major issue in this election and in this area. You brought up the Sadowski Fund, and I wonder, besides the Sadowski Fund, what more should the legislature be doing to solve the affordable housing crisis? Mr. Braswell, let's start with you on this one.
So affordable housing is hitting everyone. You know, we have graduates getting out of college over at Rollins or Stetson or at UCF, and they're leaving our area because we, in a very short period of time, become an unaffordable housing situation. I think what we have to do is incent developers to build more affordable housing and make it more available. You know, the Orange County Commission actually did a great job of passing a resolution to put it on the vote on the ballot this election cycle. And I think we'll see that actually go well, but that's not the only cure, and that's only for a temporary time. The access to more affordable housing, when I talked to developers who said, Allie, I'm part of the problem, but I have no incentive to build affordable housing. I think the legislature can move forward and do that. Leverage some of the funds in the Sadowski Fund to do that. Spend it on housing initiatives that allow developers to develop affordable housing. The way that we begin to solve this problem is to have more available units, and that's not what we currently have. And I believe that's what we have to do as a legislature is sit down with the developers, sit down and say, what would it take to incent you to build more affordable housing? And then we need to do it smartly. We don't just need to sprawl. We need to do it smartly, make it accessible. Also put it on transportation, highways and byways that people can get to and from it easily and access it to their employers.
Thank you for that. Ms. Amesty, over to you.
Yeah, so I'll start with saying that capitalism works. And I think the big issue that we have here on a local level in our district or in our state as a whole is that we don't have enough constructions going on. When it comes down to demand, we have a housing crisis. Housing crisis. The crisis is because we don't have enough constructions going on rapidly to ensure the population can have a qualified housing. Right now, we have people coming from California, from New York, people from other countries. They're moving to Florida because Florida is a great state. We have less regulations, less taxes. We have a great economy, a boosting economy, despite of the other states, the challenges that they're facing for failed policies. So right now, people are coming from all over to move to Florida. Things are hiked up right now when it comes down to pricing, when it comes down to apartment units, buying a home because of the demand. The way to solve a crisis in demand is supply and more supply. We need to build more. We need to ensure that we have apartment units. We need to ensure that we have the housing necessary for the amount of people that are moving on a daily basis to the state of Florida. Creating more competition in the market will ensure that the prices are regulated, that the prices are, I would say, controlled right now. It's not government regulation, it's less regulations to allow these developers to build in a timely manner to ensure that we have the necessary demand, supply for the demand that we have currently in the state of Florida. Thank you.
If I can follow up with you really quickly. I absolutely hear what you're saying in terms of demand and supply, but too often it's way too easy for builders to build bigger and build housing that necessarily wouldn't be considered affordable housing. Is there something specific that you would like to see happen to meet that demand?
So I personally believe that the demand is based on the community. What does our community need? And if we create more competition, for instance, creating more competition will allow that the demand is regulated. I think the market regulates itself. Personally, me coming from a family, a Venezuelan American family, I understand that capitalism works. We need to be able to build more. The specifics on the types of building, the market is going to be able to ensure to state that of its own. I believe the market regulates itself. And right now we see that we have a housing crisis, and that's why things are so expensive, because we don't have the amount of construction for the amount of people coming on a daily basis to the state of Florida.
Do I get
Chris,
to respond
over
to
to you.
that as well, Jay, or is that just to Ms. Ammons?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
So let me say this, if the market corrected itself was the solution, we wouldn't have the problem that we currently have. Because when I drive down Avalon Road in my district, there's a lot of construction going on. The problem is most of those are luxury apartments, not affordable apartments, not affordable housing. What we have to do is specifically come up with ways of incenting developers to not only compete and be in a capital market, but to also create units that people can afford to move into. Most recently, I've seen this play out in my own family, with my daughter looking for a place that she could reasonably afford while working at Walt Disney World. It's one thing to continue to build But if you're only building luxury apartments and luxury dwellings that are priced out of range of most people's incomes, then we got to come up with another way to incent developers while you're being competitive to also build enough of affordable housing that people can access. You know, it's not only about the young person in my life, my daughter, but it's also about the seniors who are on a fixed income. That income doesn't change because somebody wants to charge 20 to 30% more. So we have to be intentional and deliberate about creating affordable housing, not just housing, so that we can handle the people who are here and those who seek to move to Florida.
Thank you. Ms. Amesty, I believe you raised a hand for, if you had a very quick thing to say.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to respond. Briefly, personally, when we talk about affordable housing, we see that a lot of the construction projects, like Mr. Braswell was mentioning, a lot of the construction projects are in specific areas, and they're hence luxury building, but that's because local governments are only approving those projects. If we are able to cut regulations and cut all this red tape, we're able to build more in specific areas. For example, I have a institution in a very low income area, and I see that there's a lack of construction, a lack of development. There's a lot of housing needs, but yet local governments are not processing those as rapidly as other constructions. That's why it's important on a state level to ensure that we have less red tape, less regulations, and we put our builders to build to be able to create more supply for this demand. The demand is not just the luxury homes, it's the demand for our seniors, for our college students, for people in need, for the communities that are in crisis. It's supply to meet the demand. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to be fair, since we did allow one more, Ms. Russell, did you want to follow up very briefly on that, or did you? Or
I think I was pretty clear.
Let's keep one more question in, so I'm praying. Yeah.
I think I was pretty clear, and
Okay,
I
good,
appreciate
good.
the opportunity to be able to share that.
Thank
But
you.
I want to also make sure that we
Yeah.
keep this fair to where we're talking about. I think I said the same things, and we need to make sure that we stay there. It's the incentives that are going to drive the developers to build affordable housing. It's not about location, because just out in there's a need to have affordable housing in Horizons West. There's a need to have affordable housing over in Pine Hills. There's a need to have affordable housing throughout the entire state. So it's not driven by demographic, or it's not driven by location. It's driven by a need to make sure that we also incent developers as they build to create housing that meets everyone's needs and not just in one direction.
Well, I am going to take just one privilege and sneak in one more question, because it is very, very, very relevant to this district in particular. Both Orange and Osceola counties will have on the ballot sales tax referendums to build, in part to build roads. However, your district cranks out a tremendous amount of funding that is intended for local projects that are tied to tourism. And that tax money is not allowed to be diverted and used on things like roads, even though tourists use those roads. Do you think that the legislature should allow local governments that flexibility? And if you can keep your answers to as close as a yes or a no as possible, then we can get to our closing statements. Thank you. And we'll start with Ms. Ann.
Yeah, I personally believe that the funds should be utilized specifically for tourism, and they're intended for tourism. What makes Central Florida, specifically within the district, Orlando, the Lake Buena Vista area, is the amount of tourism. The economy that's driven in Central Florida is tourism. For such, these funds, for example, that go to Visit Florida, I think we have to ensure that we keep funding these type of tourism sector. And I would not utilize the funds for other things that are not intended to be utilized for. The funds need to be specific to tourism. They generate job growth, they generate expansion. When you talk about, or you go abroad and you mention Orlando, you're known for the amazing tourism industry that brings so much job growth and development and housing and job growth in our sector. So I believe we have to continue to persevere in the tourism. It was intended for tourism. It should stay for tourism. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Braswell.
Would you ask your question again?
Absolutely. Both Orange and Osceola counties will have sales tax referendums on the ballot that will be used to fund road improvements. However, a lot of people are asking why, since tourists use local roads, why there should not be flexibility to allow communities to access bed tax dollars, tourism development dollars, to do some of those road improvements. Do you favor that?
As close as yes or no as possible, correct?
Yes.
So no, I don't believe we need to change that. I think we need to keep it the way it is. I think we have, just like I said with the Sadowski funds, we should let the funds go to where they're targeted. And then we have opportunities to do what we're doing right now, put forth a referendum to voters for them to approve or disapprove the direction.
Thank you both very much. We have actually way past our time, but I think it was worth it. We've had some great discussion, and I wanted to let everybody know that the Sentinel will be making an endorsement in this race. However, what's important is that you take the time to look at both candidates' websites, to look at our excellent coverage, and to think about the candidate that best fits your principles and what you think the district needs and what Florida needs. So the most important thing is for you to vote on November 8th. And with that, I am going to let both of our candidates have one last opportunity to make their pitch to you as to why they should be your choice in that election. Let's start with Mr. Braswell.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the editorial board for allowing me to come before you and share. And I think this has been a great forum for people to learn more about why I'm running for office. I'm a Marine veteran running for the Florida House District 45 seat. I'm a native Central Floridian. I was born here in Sanford, grew up here until my parents moved north in search of jobs and better opportunity in the north. But I've always wanted to return home and serve. I served in the Marine Corps for 12 and a half years because I believe in the very freedoms, and I've fought for our freedoms to protect them. I'll continue to fight for them. You know, I have fought for veterans to have access to health care. As a member of Secretary Shinseki's Minority Veterans Committee, making sure that equitable services were delivered throughout our country. I've also stressed helping veterans in our local community, as we have the crown jewel of the Veterans Administration hospital system right here. I'll continue to do that. I believe that we should protect the rights that we have, and we shouldn't ebb them away. I think we need to have someone that will fight for that, and that's what I want to go to the legislature for. I look forward to helping people in District 45 fight for affordability during this housing crisis, to protect women's rights, and also we need to stop gun violence in our community. If you vote for Allie Braswell, you're voting for someone who has dedicated their life to serving this community. I hope you'll go out and vote on November 8th, and that you'll vote for Allie Braswell, because I am qualified to have this position and to serve this community.
All right, Ms. Amesty, close us out.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and for inviting us for this forum. I am a Hispanic woman, Venezuelan American, a small business owner. I'm an educator, and most importantly, I'm a constituent of District 45. I've lived here since I was 3 years old. I love our community, and I understand that we need effective representation in Tallahassee, someone that understands that capitalism works, that we need free markets, that we need effective representation, someone that will work very hard to fight this inflation that is affecting our working families, someone that understands that we must preserve the American dream, that the middle class, we need to fight for it. Right now, now, it's under threat. It's not just the big corporations, it's also the middle class, the working families, those that have their small restaurant in the district or their small business, those that are working very hard, those that are serving our communities through being a teacher or an educator. We need to raise the pay. We need people that understand what hard work is like and how we can bring effective representation through effective policies in Tallahassee. I will fight to minimize the inflation. I will fight for every child to understand that they need the opportunity to go to the school that they desire, that fits their need. It's not just one box fits it all. It's actually school choice. Parents have the right to decide where their child goes. Parents are the maximum authority over a child. Our economy needs someone who understands that free markets work. And I am just a servant. I love our community. I love serving. I love to be able to uplift our community. And I'm just here to serve. So this November 8th, I would be honored to have your support, to have your endorsement, to go out and vote for your common sense candidate. It is common sense that the middle class needs effective representation, that America is the greatest country on earth, and that capitalism works, free markets work. So thank you for the opportunity. And those that watch this video, God bless you and God bless your family.
Thank you so much. I wish you
Thank
both
you.
the best of luck. And we will look forward to November 8th.